being self-employed isn't an immediate thing. It's not, I'm going to make that decision. I can immediately think of a business idea and then I'm paying for my own bills within 2 months. My journey has been many, many years, and I'm going to share it with you today. In 2007, I was bushy-eyed, blue-eyed, fantastical blonde Nordic god that would play football. No, in 2007, I finally started the business that is the business that is now my income. However, before that, I'd had 4 or 5 years of non-stop trying, non-stop grinding. And from pretty much the age of 20, I was trying to do something to boost my horizons in the future. I did fairly well in school, but I always felt with my ADHD brain that I had more to do, more to learn. And I always realized that I couldn't really make it in a normal 9 to 5 job. In fact, within 4 to 5 years, I had 10 jobs that I jumped in, I got into, I either got itchy feet or I got removed from. It was security, it was banking, it was credit card sales, it was more security. I then went into manned guarding, where, you kind of plain security guarding everything around in what was Boots at the time. And then I went to work at a shopping centre in Gravesend, in which I was very lucky that I was able to do a night shift. 4 days, 4 nights, 4 off. At this point in time, I'd already dabbled with web design, and I'd started working with my friend, let's call him Darren. We'd been selling websites for a while, but small websites, £300 websites, 3, 4, 5 pages. And these were all humanly coded, none of this AI stuff because it didn't exist. This was back in the day where you had to get little data sticks to be online in the evening if you weren't near a Wi-Fi connection, because Wi-Fi was fairly new-ish. So you'd get a little data stick of 100 megabits for £30 a month, and it was a shitty SIM card that you'd plug into your computer. And in the evenings, I'd try and do some phone calls and some emails and some sales. At this time, I was lucky. I was fairly lucky. Around about 24, 25 years old, I was getting enough little mini sales that it supplemented my income. And we'd built up a consistency within the company, me and Darren, that we'd attracted a little bit of attention from our first investor, who was one of Darren's kind of former clients, working colleagues, who offered to bankroll the company for the first 2 to 3 months of real work on his credit card. What this meant was I went away for a music festival, Download Festival, for a weekend. And when I came back, I had been fired from my part-time job of web developer and rehired as a part owner of Netsimage, a web design company. This was fantastic for me. At the age of 25, I was my own boss, and I was really, really pleased about it. There's 3 of us within the company. The investor, who never actually spent a single dime within the company, because me as a part-time salesman was able to get 3 or 4 sales at 3, 4, £500 a pop. So me as a full-time salesman, constantly making phone calls, constantly chasing up leads, using paid advertising like Google AdSense, Google AdWords, that kind of thing, was able to drive enough traffic and enough income that the business never needed to dip into that credit card. We were officially Netsimage, a limited company, and we were selling websites. We were selling e-commerce websites. We started working with small companies around the world, small companies around Britain, whether it's a knitting company, whether it's selling scooters, whether it was selling bikes, whether it was property websites, all those kind of things. And it was nice to be listened to at the age of 25 after, being fired or let go from 10 jobs in 4 or 5 years. That really batters your confidence. But what it also taught me is that if I'm in a normal 9 to 5 job, I got a bit itchy. I'd either want to do more and they'd find me as a troublemaker that wouldn't stop talking, or I couldn't just only do my job because I'd get bored within it and then I'd kind of bend the lines. So being able to work from home was the saving grace. I could work really, really hard on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then if my brain as an ADHD person stopped working by Thursday, then that was fine. And I chased people up on a Friday and we were turning over enough money that I was earning an okay-ish income. But even at that stage, it taught you the feast or famines. This is where I could sell a lot from like February through to September, but then in September, everyone has spent a lot of money on the 6 weeks holidays for the kids, and they're eyeing up Christmas because September is only 3 months away from Christmas. And then everyone would shut off and stop spending money. So you'd get the feast of the spring, summer, autumn months, and then you'd collapse into winter and you'd worry. And you'd worry about paying the bills, and there'd be the stress in between people within the company and who's paying what and who's doing where. Things were doing well. I met a lass that I fell deeply, wholeheartedly in love with, and I moved north. That's when I started living in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire. And at this time, the company was ticking over okay. So much so that the initial investor, his family started to get greedy. And they thought that maybe they could run the company without the initial salesman stroke face of the company. And they could kind of sidelined the original web developer coder that used to help run the team due to other personal issues. Now, what this meant is that they pushed me out of the company. And I, once again, felt like a failure. I'd been fired from my own business. I hadn't really been fired. It was more of a case of that at the age of 24, 25, I wasn't given shares in my own company because it wasn't that way. I was given a full-time job. I was the only one that really had a full-time job, and everybody else kind of worked off the income that the company was making. And they chose to go the other route. Supposedly, this was the ironic thing, supposedly selling swimming lessons is exactly the same as selling a web design package that you've built and generated and understand the marketing for 3-4 years. So they went with the swimming lessons dude and thought they could replace me. So I left and I moved on and I started my own web design company called Spicer Designs. I basically had my paid apprenticeship where for 2-3 years I'd learn 3-4 years for that matter, I'd learn how to build a web design company, advertise a web design company, make all those phone calls, do all those marketing, sort out the sales, track it all on spreadsheets, understand which coder, which designer has things, managing the production line of those web design assets. But also, this was at the birth of YouTube having some form of traction. So now that I've learned that from NetsImage, I can parlay that into Spicer Designs, where not only am I making those sales calls and I'm chasing those clients, but I also started dabbling in YouTube. Mainly because I understood that SEO for videos at that time were very, very intriguing. More and more views were going to this thing called YouTube, where people would upload videos talking about stuff. People were kind of semi-making money, but there wasn't really advertising on YouTube just yet. But in theory, you could generate a brand, build brand awareness, and push people towards your website that you could sell with. So I learned how to do this YouTube thing. And over a good 4.5 years, I built up a YouTube channel that had 45 to 50,000 subscribers and over 45 million views. I did it for research. I tried to understand how it would work, how to optimize a title, how to optimize descriptions, but I was also playing around, making funny videos that anyone of my age, like mid-20s to early 30s, would just dick around with. But the demonetization wave slammed through YouTube, and I was one of those victims. Even at 45 million views, however, I realized that I weren't really making money. I was getting hundreds of thousands of views per month, but because they were slightly sensitive topics, they weren't being monetized. In fact, YouTube was really struggling with money anyway. I think over the course of 3 years, I'd maybe made £3,000-4,000 off of YouTube advertising at most. And this is when I changed my tilt. Instead of chasing only views, I wanted to educate people and use it as a marketing tool. I understood the power of YouTube. I understood that I could spend 5, 10, 15 pounds per 1,000 views on Google AdWords to get clicks through to my website that might convert, that I might phone through and try and sell myself. Or I could make the Alan Spicer YouTube channel that I am here. I could teach you how YouTube works. You would then trust me enough that Alan's the YouTube certified expert that I want to work with. They click on the link down below, just like on this video. There's a link for a free discovery call if you want to go and click on that. And then they'd call me, or I would contact them, ask them about what kind of website that they want, or how to consult them on growing on YouTube or their social media or building their business. That's when I learned the very important thing, that views on YouTube doesn't mean money. Views on YouTube means brand awareness that you can funnel somewhere, anywhere. So I made more in the first 2 years of my Alan Spicer channel existing than I ever did with the previous YouTube channel. Right now, this channel has a fair few views. I think around about 12 to 15 million views. I might be wrong, but nowhere near as many views as the previous YouTube channel. But this channel in itself has become my income. It funnels people through to my affiliates. It's generated a CV, a curriculum vitae, a resume to prove what I can do. It's helped me collect my clients and my silver play buttons for my other clients. I personally don't have a silver play button for my own channel, but I was able to join brands, help them grow, make money through them, retainers, through affiliate income. So it just goes to show that a YouTube channel in itself became my business, became my funnel. Now, I know it can be slightly different for other people, but I've also got another client, for example, Liam the Terrible, who talks about constantly converting vans because he has a custom van architect DIY company, and that's how he generates his income. They see how fantastic the vans are, they book in, he gets another lead that gets another video that generates another tour that gets more attention, that gets more views, that funnels through. So my entire entrepreneurial journey took me years. I am 41 years old, and it's only recently in the last 2-3 years that I've been earning a stable enough income that I don't worry about money so much. I still have the feast or famine effect that you have with any self-employed, but I went from literally being in a situation where I was taking home £400 per month and crippling myself in debt in my early 20s, including an IVA and almost bankruptcy, through to where I am now, where I earn enough that I can support 2 children. I can live in a property that I am comfortable with. I can pay my bills. I'm not scrimping and saving, and I get 4 or 5 organic leads for clients each and every month through the power of YouTube. In fact, you can do this exactly the same way. I will show you how you can turn views into leads. Check out this video here. And if it's not here just yet, subscribe and be the first ones to jump on it as soon as possible.